Messi. Messi. Oh my goodness. Balotelli. Aguero. That is extraordinary. What a headshot. What a hit. Back of the net.
It's easy to criticise when you're standing outside or watching the game from the stands. I think in a way it's normal, but look, excuses when you lose 5-0 is kind of pathetic. To be excusing or talking about positives is embarrassing to lose 5-0.
Well, the weather outside is frightful and the football is not delightful. Gentlemen, we are the Not a Pundit podcast, and I'm delighted to be joined as ever by Nathan and Connor. We are going to be looking at the latest international break, and thankfully the last of 2024. I think we're not going to have an international break until March of 2025, which feels like a lifetime away. But we will be looking back on the Finland and England games. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
I'm very well, my man. I think, like you said, the only positive out of this international break is probably that we don't have one for a good few months. But how are you doing, Nate?
I'm doing good. Was that why we're doing a press conference?
Strange.
No, yeah, I'm good. How are you, Killian?
I am good. The weather has taken a turn. It's -1 as I speak. So yes, it is that time of year, but do you know what that means, lads? That means we're going to get mental football, hopefully in snow. We'll get the bright orange and green balls. It'll be great crack, and it means that we're very, very close to the transfer window. Plus, it means we're getting towards the business end of the season. But before all that, before we can have all the fun, we do have to tackle into this international break. We all went into it saying we have to beat Finland, and we have to come away with positives from England. Connor, we bet Finland. It was not the most convincing victory, though.
Yeah, it's one of those games that, look, it was great for Heimir to get a win. It was good for the team to get a win. I think, confidence has been talked about far too much over the last couple of weeks, and I'm getting sick of hearing about it. And I think it was a confidence boost that the team needed. But it's one of those games, I think, on a different day, that could have gone a very different way. Like, when you look at the stats, shots on target, Ireland 3, Finland 4, shots off target 6-5. We'd 45% possession, and then when you look at crosses, it was 25 for us versus 22. Very tight game. Great to see Ferguson get a goal. I know we've been talking about him and the Ireland team, but I don't know about you, Nate.
First competitive non-Gibraltar goal for Ireland.
That says a lot in itself. And, I don't know about you, Nate, but like I said, there's a lot of chat about the confidence side of things. There's confidence in getting a win there, but there's only so much confidence you can get in a 50-50 game with a team you should be beating.
Well, exactly. Like, I didn't come out of it full of confidence. I thought we were quite lucky, which is the opposite of the move that you want to be coming out of a game like that, where, I wanted to go and see his performance out, and I'm sort of at the point where I'm sick of saying our midfield is atrocious. Like, so bad. The disconnect from the defence to the attack is genuinely crazy, and I don't know what they can do to close that gap. Like, our forwards are getting isolated, and then our defenders are left struggling to get back for stuff. It was a really poor performance, in my opinion, and not to go into the England game yet, but to sum up the whole of the international break, it wasn't great at all.
Now, I don't know about you, Killian. The only positive that I have taken out of, I suppose, what are we on now? 3 international breaks for Heimir, and he's had the guts of I think I saw it in the papers during the week. It was 36 players he's played throughout those games, and I think that is possibly the only positive to take, at least kind of before we hit into the England game from that Finland game. It's seen a bit more of a trial of a team.
Yeah, but like, in fairness, it's 3 international breaks in a period where you would normally expect 2. So I don't know if it's just me. It feels like it's been rapid fire here, and in international terms anyway. Like, it feels like it's just been very run and gun.
For sure.
Like, we did say that there was 3 replacements. I wonder how much influence Heimir would have had over who them replacements were. They kind of seem to be very much here's who we know, and we'll call them up. I didn't like that. I think Doherty proved why he shouldn't be in the team, and why he wasn't in for the second game, which was good. I think a positive to take out of the Finland game was we played quite badly and we still got a result. That's the way we should be. Like that's
We should be hard to not hard to. We should be hard to beat, but
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. We should be able to win games dirty if we need to.
yeah, like we were able to we ground out that result, and on another day it could have gone a different way, but the fact is it didn't, and we just need to take that. So like that's a positive. The confidence thing.
It's
I
bugging
think-
me, man. It's so
No,
bugging me.
I think it's becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, I'm a Sunderland fan. I've been watching teams struggle with relegation for most of my footballing life. And when people start talking about confidence being an issue, then it becomes an issue. Because then it's suddenly players start doubting, kind of going, oh, well, are we not that good? Like, I knew Sunderland was going to go down to the Championship for the first time in nearly a decade. When David Moyes in his first or second press conference says, yeah, we will probably go down, it's going to be a fight. That was giving up beforehand. So when you're talking about not having confidence, are you instilling a lack of confidence in the team? And I think that could be kind of part of some of the issues right now. And I think it's a dangerous road to go down, Nate. Like, I understand why you're not happy with the Finland game, but I think we have to look at it for what it was. It was a bad performance on which we got a result.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I also think personally, and listen, I think I was chairman of Become Hard to Beat, you know what I mean? But
Brucey.
I don't think we were hard to beat. I think we got extremely lucky and we got saved by Guy Gallagher.
What a performance, by the way.
100%, yeah.
100%. You know, Ferguson and Gallagher produced two class moments that won us that game. If it wasn't for two split-second moments, we'd probably lose that game. So I think a big thing is focusing on really focusing in on where we go next and cutting out this sort of like this rhetoric that's like sipped in, that it's like, oh, there's confidence issues here, confidence issues there. I think I agree with you, Killian. I think they're making them. I think it's becoming that through themselves. So listen, they need a huge upturn in performance, but I don't think we're gonna get it.
Do you think Heimer's going for the kind of old army mentality of break him down to build him back up in the way that you want him to play, or do you think he can even do that?
I think he's probably telling the truth, but it's not one of the things you should acknowledge.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like
Yeah.
that kind of fake it till you make it. It's did you ever watch Last Goal Wins by American Samoa?
Oh yeah, with Fassbender.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was like when he first went in and he said they were crap, there was no confidence at all. But then when he was like, "Do you know what? No, we're here. We're going to have fun. We're going to do this. We can do this. We're going to be winners." And then they started believing it, and then they started to achieve it. And I think that's the difference between leader of men and coaches. I think that's where some of these, like we've said it 100 times, where there's some coaches that can go in and just get that extra 10% out of people. Whether they have it in their locker or not, they will get it. Like Neil Warnock. You go out there and die for 3 points. And when you have that kind of mentality, it drags people along whether they like it or not. Or if they don't, well, then you don't call them up again.
Well,
Whereas-
there's so many examples of that. Like you look at, you know, Big Sam up when he was at Bolton. You look at Paul Jewell at Wigan. You know, very average teams that way punched above their weight.
Owen Coyle at Burnley. Like,
Yeah.
that Burnley team never should have been in the Premier League. Phil Brown at Hull. Like, this can be done. And I don't know if Heimir is that kind of a manager, but I don't think you need to put yourself in a position where that's necessary. Like, I think he's nearly forcing it into where, like, he's going to need a movie style, like, big speech to rally the troops. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it that's where I would kind of potentially have an issue. But I have to say, in the England game, they reacted very, very well. That first 50 minutes was old school, hard to beat Ireland. And despite the result, we should praise that for what it was, Nate. That was a very good performance up until a team that is 70 positions ahead of us bet us 5-0.
Yeah, like I'm struggling here in terms of giving that bit of praise just because of how bad it got after that. Like, I thought we showed some good things in the beginning of the game, and we were firm, but I don't think England were particularly good in the first half. I don't think they tested us much. I think we probably should have had a penalty. I don't know which one that would have been, but
We definitely should have had a penalty.
Well,
Uh,
I said the same in the group to you boys. I was like, we deserved one. I don't know which one it was. Like and that sounds petty and try hard to get a penalty, but there was definitely one in there.
I just want to say before we move on, when you mentioned the WhatsApp, Connor, when it was it 1-0, maybe 2-0?
When the first goal went in, yeah.
Yeah, Connor goes, 5-0 incoming. He jinxed it. It's all his fault. We called him out on the socials. If you're not following us, do. It's not a pundit podcast or not a pundit pod. But it's all Connor's fault. Heimir is completely washed clean of the sin of 5-0 to England.
I mean, I'll take that one for the bad juju that it is. It was probably for the Halloween next year's Halloween episode. We'll chuck it in, but I think Nate's right with that. England didn't play too well. There was positives I will give you in that kind of first 45 anyway. I think when we came out after the break in that 5 minutes, even it was poor, but we had good shape. I think Ireland pressed quite well. We held our line fairly strong. I do think you have to remember that wasn't even as much as of an England B team as almost their C team, which I know sounds harsh on some of the players there, but I mean with the volume of players that pulled out outside of Bellingham, Kane, Gahey, kind of the rest of them were filler players really, and I think if they were full strength, that could have been a lot more than 5.
Their filler players are starting in the Premier League though, when our starting goalkeeper is a backup for our Premier League team. So like Nate, I think some of this needs to be put into context. Like that's why I said 70 places above where we are, or 65 or whatever it is.
yeah, but okay, yeah, I agree with that. I do. I think a big thing though was the mentality drop after we conceded that first goal. It was such a decline that it's all good doing 70 minutes worth of work and putting in a shift, but if you can't stop the bleeding after one goal, what's the point? Like, and I think to concede 5 after that England side was poor in my opinion in the first half. It was just a lack of trying after that point. It was a lack of belief, and the scoreline just drifted away.
I have to say, like, the first half, for as much as I will praise Ireland for it, and I think they frustrated England, and I think that I got real buzzed off that. I was kind of going, "Oh, this is old school Ireland. This is getting yellow cards on English players. They riled them up in just the right way." And I was like, I did take a lot of heart for that going forward. I think if we can bottle up that and do it in against teams that are lesser than England, I think we could actually grind out results against teams that are bigger than us, because there'll be some nations that just will allow their emotions to kind of cloud their judgment, and I think that's where we have a lot of potential to jump up a few ranking places without the merit of kind of earning them. But England in that game were quite dirty. They allowed themselves to be aggravated, and they didn't seem in control. Even when they were like, by the time they got 3 or 4 nil up, then they kind of started to cruise, Connor. But before then, it kind of seemed like the players had lost their heads and had to regain them.
I think it was a little bit of the team knew it's Carsey's last game. They've nothing to prove to him. Tuchel will make his own decisions, not based off that game. I think they knew themselves as a very ragtag, ragtag England game or England team, and I think there was just a lack of cohesion because a lot of those players hadn't really played together that much, and I think they, like you said, Ireland pushed them and they were pushing the right buttons for the first 45, and I I think it's one of those where they didn't expect it, they didn't know how to react, but then I also think it was a team that was just kind of going, look, we'll go out here and see what happens. There was a I suppose a grand plan the Carsley wanted to implement, but I think there was a little bit of free flowing football, and when you have that without a point in the same direction. Like you can have lads who play together week in, week out, and they can play free ball on it, and it'll work. But when you've a load of blokes that meet each other, a handful of times a year, it's just not going to work. But I think. I think that is the big takeout from this. That if Ireland can play like that and learn the weaknesses of other teams and apply pressure to them, make them ratty, pull the yellow cards, yeah, look, we said this a million times. Is it the ideal style? No. Do Ireland even need a style? No, as long as we're winning games. And I think that's where, look, we're relegated into League C now, which, okay, not great optically, but I do think it's one of those ones that let's just get a couple of wins under our belt, get used to beating teams, and that famous word confidence again. What are you saying, Nate?
You just got me thinking there in terms of like what Heimer had to say after the game. Then it's like if you start making excuses for the players, do you sort of give them excuses going on then? Because like I think it's a dangerous line between going we're hard to beat and then conceding a goal to conceding five. It's like and then you come out at that and go, oh, is this a mental issue? Is this something that the team have to get over? But is that going to be the line that gets used now after every game that we lose? Oh, it's a mental issue. They can't get over this hump. It's like I just think we need to be careful that we can't that they stop the criticism because it becomes a quote unquote mental issue and a hump that the team have to get over.
I think the two sound bites that have really haunted Heimer a little bit is that initial one where he said the jersey was too heavy for some players. I think that was not say that in the dressing room, absolutely. Bury players if you want internally, publicly, that is an absolute PR disaster. And I think the second one coming off the back of this international break where he said 6 minutes of madness, like, let's face it, once that first goal went in, Ireland absolutely mentally capitulated completely and totally. There was that's why I fired it into the group saying it's 5-0 coming. You could just see that we've been here before. Like the only way the Ireland in its current form gets a result against England is if we go 1-0 up in 80 minutes and they score in 88 to level it. So I think he's right in the fact that the players don't seem to mentally either want it enough, believe in him and Ireland enough or what. But I think those two sound bites are really going to haunt them. And to me, if I'm a player underneath that, I'm like, can we keep some things in-house, please?
Just on the point of players not wanting it enough, I don't think you can cast that aspersion across the whole squad because there is some players that came out of this international break with a lot of credit. Festy has arrived. I thought he was brilliant the whole way through. Like against England, when we were doing well, he was incredible, and when we were doing not great, he was still fine. Like for a player that is so raw, and I don't think any of us can really doubt that kind of thing that's kind of thrown at him often. I thought O'Dowda was actually okay as a left wing back. I think he makes more sense after the England game for why he was getting called up. I still wouldn't call him up.
He has the ability from a delivery point of view, and
from a defensive point of view, there's question marks.
Yes, a lot, and that's if we can find him a position in the team that his role is to just cross balls in, he has a good kind of cross on him. He's got good range with the ball. Okay, fine. Would I call him up? No. Festy, absolutely. Look, he wasn't perfect. I don't think we could say that about anyone in the Ireland team at the moment, but he's definitely is one that can't be saying that he's not trying hard enough. He's as energetic as you'll find.
And not just that, he's looking like a player that will be in the Premier League in 2 years' time, at worst case, or Serie A if he decides that that's where he wants to be. Like he is a really, really kind of top player now.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think the biggest compliment we can give him is he has the qualities of like top class fullbacks, and I think that's something that this Ireland team's lacked is players that you can go like, you might not have it yet, but you have the hallmarks for it, and I think that's something that we can definitely say from. It's obviously going to have to depend on his development going forward and how that plans out. But I think as a base, you've got a really good player, and I think he's a player that the top clubs are going to be looking at now because
And it's like what we said with Alan Cawley, like Ireland's really struggled for those wing backs, in both left and right flank. It's a position we just haven't been able to figure out. And I know Nate, you were kind of trying to figure out how we could get there, and he's definitely having players like him is exciting because I think it fosters that position. Like if people are looking at if young kids are looking at that Ireland team going, Festy's one of the main players, they're going to want to be in his position, and that only serves us going forward.
100%. I think in football as a whole, it's like you need to see these players that come out and excel in these positions that aren't the fancy, they aren't the sexy positions in football. Is it really then inspires other people to go on and do it? And I think that's something that we need in Ireland. Is like I don't know who, like we need Wes Hoolahan to come back and do some FAI camps or something like try and get some midfielders going, but.
Some samba soccer, yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely not going to hurt the perception of like left backs going forward. Like I'll tell you now, lads, I'd take him at United because I think he'd fit into Amarin's system in a year or so. Not a bother. He's that type of fullback, and yeah, I don't think we'll get him, but I think the top club will.
I don't think he'll go straight to Premier League. I think he'll play a smarter game. I don't know about you guys, but I think he'll go somewhere, get some first team reps, just like for a sustained period, and then probably come into the Premier League.
I think it'll depend on whether Udinese need money.
Yeah.
Realistically, like the way Italian football is at the minute, I think the decision will be taken out of his hands. I don't think he'll be afforded the opportunity to be smart. But I also took a lot of heart from the Finland game with the combination of Ferguson and Smodics up front. Like, Ferguson in that game kind of reminded me of Harry Kane. That kind of big guy dropping deep, collecting the ball. And that's where you would assume that Smodics, having come through as an attacking midfielder, would have been the one doing that. But he played great off the shoulder, like being that kind of poacher, advanced forward, and just let Evan drop deep and be more of a creator. I thought the big guy, little guy thing really worked.
I think it worked well. I think my only concern with Smodics is I think he's so desperate for a goal on the international stage. He's taken on a lot of shots where there could have been passes, and look, I get that, but no, I think I was curious as to how well they'd work together, and could we pull off that big man little man kind of thing, and all signs are looking positive. Like I said, I was really happy to see Ferguson get a goal back. I know we've been kind of rinsing him on this pod for a while, but a confident Evan Ferguson is only a good thing for Ireland, and if he can form a partnership with Smodics bringing us forward, amazing. Because I mean, look, I really think we're punching above our weight in that position for the level we're currently at what 60 odd in the world. To have an Evan Ferguson and Sammy Smodics up top, I'll take that.
It's it's positive, and like the fact that we're so stacked in that position, it's great to have two that are working, and then plenty of guys that are putting pressure on them between Tom Cannon and Parrott and any of the other kind of potential guys coming through, the likes of Zeffy and even Noonan on the longer scale, who I would like to see, or Mason Melia kind of come through in some way, shape, or form in the squads, just to kind of start bleeding them in.
I think they will. It's just a matter of time,
But Nate, you touched on it earlier, the midfield being a bit of an issue. What did we think of Nathan Collins being that little bit more of an advanced defender, really deep lying midfielder?
I think certain people, shout out Eamon Dunphy for this one, have fairly rinsed them, kind of Heimir trying to make him into a Rodri character, and I think that's an unfair comparison. Rodri's the top player in that position in the world, and in a system amongst Pep that fosters that. I think Nathan Collins did really well, to be honest. For the most part, I think he controlled the controllables, if that makes sense. And I think he was very consistent. And look, he is Probably the best chance of a leader we have in that team at the moment. And he's got a lot of weight in his shoulders, and I think he performed as good as we could have expected against the opponents that we were against. I don't know, Unite.
Yeah, what do they call that football manager? Libero or something? He's a little Libero. Listen, do I think it's going to be viable in the long term? No. Do I think it's worth trying? Yes. Um,
When you say the long term, no, do you think Collins or just Collins in that role?
Collins in that role, like I think either commit to being like I'm not against using Collins as a centre defensive midfielder. Like I'd probably like I think it's better than what we have. To be honest with you, um, like I'd be interested to see it, but I don't think playing it where it's like you're half in, you're half out is going to work in the long term. I think you either need to commit to him in the midfield or defence. Have me thinking about it now, I'd probably like to see him in defence, or sorry, I'd probably like to see him in midfield.
What are you saying, Killian? Would you think the experiment worked? One thing I should say before you kind of come in on it is I was glad to see Heimer even tried it.
Yeah, that was kind of my big positive out of it. I was one that was pushing for it, and I'm glad to see that it wasn't a terrible failure. More to the point, but I think it's in the current system. I don't think it particularly works to anybody's benefit. Just because he ends up being an advanced defender, really. Like he's more defender than he is playing in midfield, I thought. I think doing that against more level opposition would be a lot more interesting, where he can kind of take a little bit more control. And I think that's where we could get a real benefit, is by freeing up Malumbi and Cullen, if that's going to be the midfield two, to go forward, and having big man Collins in the centre. I think that's where we can get the real benefit of, and I don't think you got that in the England game. But I know we're stacked at centre back, and even Alan Colley touched on that. Like, of all positions, it's one that we don't necessarily need to be trying to keep a load of players in. I think we gain more with him at centre back at the minute. With the way that they're playing anyway.
I'd totally agree with that, because
Yeah.
look, if we're trying to turn him into Declan Rice or Jude Bellingham, that's not happening. Like, Nathan Collins is a brilliant player. He is not that level right now, at least. Look, who knows where his ceiling is? I don't think it's ever going to be near Jude Bellingham. It could be closer to Declan Rice, but yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think I wouldn't shut off the idea of doing it again, but I'd rather him be a top class centre back than a better than average 6.
Like, I think if we had kept him as a centre back for that England game and just had a back five, we may have had a bit more solidity that maybe might have made the 5 goals harder to get. But like I think I would like I'd just like to see it like against a Bosnia, that kind of level of team that's
Even
like,
a Poland. I'd take a
it's like
Poland,
someone that's quite a bit above us, but that we can get a result against. Because doing it against England, I don't think is a fair comparison. What about you, Nate?
Yeah, no, I agree. I'd like to see him do it against a Greece or something. I think that'd be a good level, but
Yeah.
I think like the way I see it is, do you think he's better than the midfielders we have in midfield?
I'd say he's just as good.
I think he's more disciplined. I
Do
think
the
you can
ceiling's
tell
higher?
him what to
Do you think
do.
the ceiling's higher? Because I personally do. Like, listen, lads, we're not trying to turn him into next year Bellingham. We don't have another. We do, trust me, we don't have a Jude Bellingham in the pipeline.
Might have Job.
Yeah.
Job there's no world in which that kid's playing for a green jersey. Not a hope.
Could you imagine the media?
Class. It'd be like Kevin Prince Boateng and Jerome Boateng at the World Cup.
Or the Musiala brothers.
Like, I just don't see. I don't see the downside to at least trying to integrate him into midfield in this Ireland squad. I think we need to use the benefit that we have so many decent centre backs, and we need to build on that. And if we can transfer one of them away, I know he's our captain. I think it's positive. I think it's something that we should look at.
I don't know about you guys, but like, as good as that first 45 was, or even call it 50, I don't think we could have maintained that for 90. Like, I know the sending off really just flipped the game in its head and opened up the floodgates, but we weren't going to win that game anyway. I still think that was going to end up 2-3-0.
Yeah, probably. But actually, just when you mentioned the red card, I thought Liam Scales was very good up until his sending off.
Yeah, he was.
He kept a lid on Harry Kane for a long time. And I think that should be noted, because I was one that was speaking not ill, but not lovingly of.
Well, I think you giving Scales credit is like Graham Souness giving Pogba credit. So he must have done something right. I do think, like we said at the top of the show, I think there was a slight element of Kane was having a bit of an off day. But as we've said before, Ireland can only beat who's in front of them. A player can only take the player who's in front of him, and Scales definitely had Kane. I won't say in his pocket, but he definitely had him controlled for a short period.
Well, you say Kane was on an off day, Nate. Was Kane on an off day, or was it more symptomatic of a dressing room that it was kind of a little bit in turmoil? Because a few of the players anyway seem to have really be enjoying playing under Carsley after apparently not enjoying under Southgate.
Yeah, it's a funny one. We got that social media post from Grealish and Bellingham today, which alluded to the preference of Carsley over Southgate. Now, do I think do I think Carsley's a better manager than Southgate? Maybe.
Well, you just hate Southgate.
But I think it alludes to like turmoil in there. I think Grealish's one is probably valid for not going to the Euros.
Just for context, the post was a photo of Carsley looking at Grealish. What a guy and manager, absolute legend, and thank you for bringing back the enjoyment in an England shirt.
And I think from the Bellingham point of view, whatever about Grealish, I think Nate's right. It's probably just he's happy to be back in an England jersey post not being selected. But Bellingham came out, huge thanks to Lee and his staff for their work in these last few camps. Now, that's something you'd normally hear from someone like Jude Bellingham, very controlled from a PR perspective. But the next line is what really made me go, ooh, bit of spice in there. Got my smile back in an England shirt. Very grateful. That's dropping bombs.
Yeah, that says that. I wonder how much of a decision leaving England was actually Southgate's now in retrospect, or is it kind of like, oh, I have no choice because these players are not going to play for me again?
I do think it was. I think he knew if he didn't jump, there wasn't much runway left for him. You know, Southgate got to 2 finals, which is great. He hadn't won any. That's the problem. And they've brought Tuchel in now with the mandate of winning a World Cup, which just it sounds so easy. But yeah, no, I'm very, very surprised that Bellingham, who's one of the most kind of PR aware players out there right now, did that. So it was definitely calculated that kid doesn't make mistakes.
Nate, what did you make of Carsley's reign for England? Will this push on for him getting another big job?
No, I don't think it will. I think he's sort of shot himself in the foot not taking the Ireland job. That's what I was taking out of it. I think he's gone in, done all right. I think the media have taken a stance on him. I think that's important to note. Is they've made their feelings very clear on some of the stuff he stands for and what he does. I don't think that's going to help him in the future. Listen, lads, this might be another Nathan statement or whatever, but I think I could go in and do what he done. Like, I'm not even gonna lie.
I mean, look, 5 wins out of 6, and the only losses against a Greece team who had a tragedy, day of or day before the game. So, I mean, I think he showed out well for himself on the pitch, but like you said, from a press perspective, he faltered, I think.
One thing it does show with the players' messages is that Ireland was right to pursue him for as long, because obviously he's doing something right over there. But a manager who is not going to be going anywhere, as we just have seen messages come through as we record, is Pep Guardiola, Connor.
Sound the klaxons. Yeah, no, it's not completely, 100%. There's no statement from the club, but there's enough sources out there saying that
Well, the
Guardiola's
Athletic have reported it, so it's reasonably legit.
yeah, and they're saying a new 1 year contract extension with the option of an additional year. I'm not surprised at the contract itself. I think we said it in a recent episode that if he was to stay on, it would be that 1 year with the option for it. I'd be very surprised if he takes that second year option. I think what this suggests to me, though, in a wider piece, is City think they're safe in the charges, because I don't think Guardiola would have stuck around if that controversy is going to hang over them. I don't know about you guys, or is he kind of like, I made this bed, I'll sleep in it some more.
We get to see. Hopefully, we get to see Guardiola go down with the ship. Like, that'd be great. Yeah. Oh, to be honest, I don't know what to think about it. Could he be trying to rally the players for a morale perspective for the season, possibly?
And
That
still
could be-
leave, like.
Possibly. Like, is this just a PR thing to get the players on side and be like, I'm not going anywhere?
Well, I mean, post Klopp, where he came out and basically killed Liverpool's title chances because of it, if he did do that, it'd be quite 4D chess. Like, they're only 5 points off Liverpool.
like I could see that. So personally, but I guess there's another wait and see. Like, if he continues this form, I'm happy for him to stay.
I think it's more about Hugo Viana arriving more than it is anything else. I think it's probably more like we don't want to lose both heads of our club structure all at once, so we'll make it a ridiculous offer. Just stay for the year, then you can take. If you want to leave after that, we'll let you, and we won't fight you on it.
I think that's a good point, because I think they
or-
want to avoid a Fergie David Gill situation.
Yeah, like don't forget they lost Barada last year. Like they've had a lot of change at the top, so I don't think they can necessarily afford for a Klopp-esque kind of leaving this early into Viana is reign, because it'd be Pep out the door and Viana in on the same day. But it's interesting to see how the City will react to this from a performance point of view. Will they bounce back, or will this just be, as Nate's kind of alluded to, continuity of the season's form?
I do think that wobble. I'd be shocked if that lasts. I don't like. It's not like there's going to be. It's not a new manager, so it's not going to be a new manager bump. I think. Look, they'll be delighted he's staying. I think part of them. I'd say in that dressing room, 50-50 thought they were staying. He was staying. He was going. But City are a far better team than they've been playing recently, and I'd be absolutely amazed if that wobble turns into a full-on issue.
Please God.
Before we go, we're going to talk about a team that's having the opposite of a wobble, and that is the one and only, the behemoth that is San Marino, lads.
You'd love to see it.
They got promoted from Nations League D to C. They're 210th in the world,
and now in the same pot as us. Look, I think my favorite thing about San Marino is their social media admin. That man, when they get a win, just pops off, and it is absolutely brilliant. San Marino have long been a laughed at team. They still will be for a lot of years. And I think if you're a Harry Kane, you look at those teams and go, that's how I'm going to keep this England goal scoring record. But look, fair play to them. We'll see how they cope. I can't imagine it'll go too well, though.
I don't know. Like, I think they're just riding the wave that it is. Like, they've beaten Liechtenstein twice now. But this is a nation that is has a population less than Navan. Just to put things in context.
They're like the international Villarreal.
Yeah, like it's class to see. One thing it does though, is like we may whinge about the Nations League and the constant kind of international breaks and stuff. This proves that there's merit to it, Nate. Like the smaller team is getting a better chance.
Yeah, but I'd also throw back at you, like, what's the probabilities that they were like, come on, lads, they had to win at this point? Like, it's just the world, like, probabilities working in its natural way. Like, all I've got to say is what's happened to Liechtenstein? Like,
They're falling off.
their FA need to have a big look at themselves. Like, to be losing to San Marino, I don't know what the crack is. What was the stat? This is the first time they scored over 1 goal in a game or something?
It's the first time San Marino scored more than 2 goals in a match since their first official international match in 1987.
Like, lads, shout out to my San Marino brothers out there, but I'm just going to have to say, lads, if he's go that long without scoring over 2 goals, what's the level for revoking a football license? Like, Jamie, like, we had to have a chat here. No, but fair play to them, and I wish them the best going forward.
It's the most backhanded compliment from a podcast I think I've ever heard. We're like, yeah, well done, lads, but you're still crap.
Football is about inclusion, Nate. We're not trying to revoke any licenses here. We want more. I still want a micro World Cup of all the small nations. Anybody 150 and below, get them all playing together. It'll be class.
5 aside and I'm in.
Do it like the old Legends.
Yeah, I'd 100% watch that.
No, like this is part of the reason why we watch football, is to see these kind of stories come true, and who knows, we might see a Michael Fassbender movie about this in the future, a la Last Goal Wins. But gentlemen, that kind of brings us to the end of this international break. Are you only just delighted? No, it's been good. It's been a telling international year for Ireland. We've changed managers, got the new manager. We did the wait. We've got to see him, and here's to a better 2025 for Ireland.
Please
God.
My thanks, as always, to Conor Glennon, Nathan Byrne, and to you, the listener. And we'll be back next week with a very special episode.
Bye-bye.
Messi. Oh my goodness! Balotelli.